Hi guys, this is John from Antique Trail Tales, and this is your guide to Brimfield. In this video, we're going to talk about some details about the Brimfield show, what times of year it runs, what days of the week it runs. We'll discuss some of the fine-grained details about the shows themselves, which ones require admission, which ones are free, what days each of them will be open. We'll also talk about some of the fields that may have more of a genre to them, so maybe jewelry, maybe vintage clothing. Well, the disclaimer here is that most of the fields, it's going to be a variety of antiques, so you really want to check everything out probably. But I'll do my best to kind of talk about some of the things that I've seen. I'll also discuss a little bit about lodging and dining, and then after all that, I'll finally get around to showing you guys what we found on our past trip to Brimfield this year. We had a pretty good haul, and I'll kind of talk through some of the pieces that we found. All right, join me, Mom, Dad, Abby, and Dudley, and let's explore Brimfield. So Brimfield runs 3 times a year, once in May, once in July, and once in September. So for the spring show, the May show, typically you're going to get pretty big crowds. Get ready for maybe some rain depending on what time of the week you go. I've gone a bunch of times in May, and I would say maybe 50% of the time there's some rain during that week. So just be prepared for that. The May show, like I said, is pretty crowded, but you also get probably the most dealers, and given it's got the largest amount of time between shows, you're probably getting the freshest offerings from a lot of the dealers. The July show or the summer show, it gets pretty hot. You typically will have smaller crowds during this time of year. Be careful because it does get pretty hot, and dress accordingly. Bring some sunscreen. But given the fact that they're smaller groups, maybe it's a better opportunity to snag a good deal. There still are a lot of dealers set up. Nonetheless, it's still worth the trip. And finally, the fall show. This show typically, again, a little bit better temperature-wise, bigger crowds. It's a nice kind of fall weather type event, so not too much rain this time of year as well, so usually it's kind of clear. And we've done very well at the fall shows. Any one of the 3 shows, you definitely have some great opportunity. So no matter which one you can make, you're bound to find some great deals. Oh, hold on a second. Hey, Dudley, wake up. Yeah, sure you were, buddy. Let's talk about some of the show fields themselves, right? So the Brimfield's starting on Tuesday. I'm going to show the map here of all the show fields. The ones highlighted in red are all ones that are going to open on Tuesday, roughly around 6 a.m. A lot of them say sunrise, typically 6 a.m. they'd be open. Now these highlighted show fields, they will run the entirety of the Brimfield show. I'm just letting you guys know they do start on Tuesday. But no matter what time of the week you come in, these will be open each day at sunrise, 6 a.m. Now, this next grouping of shows are going to open a little bit later on Tuesday, and we have 2 shows that will only be on Tuesday. That's going to be Treasure Trunk Tuesday towards the top of the map here, and then as you head to the bottom, you'll see Dealer's Choice. Now, Dealer's Choice is also a pay field. Treasure Trunk Tuesday opens at between 7 and 8 a.m. on Tuesday. Dealer's Choice is at 11 p.m. And then off to the left, we'll have the Meadows. They open at 8 a.m. on Tuesday as well. Now the Meadows will run the entire week of Brimfield. Moving on to Wednesday. Wednesday we have a couple shows also here. You'll see highlighted on the map. We have starting at 6 in the morning, opening its gates, is New England Motel. Now that's also a pay field. The next one on the list is going to be Heart of the Mart, another pay field. That's going to start at 9 a.m. And then finally on Wednesday we have the Hertans show, which is also a pay field, and that one starts at noon. All right, let's move on to Thursday, where we have arguably the most famous field at the Brimfield show, which is going to be May's Antique Market. May's opens up at 9 a.m. on Thursday. Next up, let's talk about Friday. Friday, we have Brimfield Auction Acres, which will actually take place right where we saw where Treasure Trunk Tuesday was located. Now, that one runs Friday and Saturday. The final show of the week, which runs on Saturday and Sunday, is the Weekend Warrior Show, which takes place at Hertans location here on the map. Now, I find this little sheet pretty helpful once Brimfield comes around. This is from the Journal of Antiques, and it lists all the show fields. It will give you the times they open, and then you'll see on the right-hand side, it'll show those stars on which days the fields are actually going to be open. Alrighty, now it's time to talk about the show fields themselves. What I'll do is I'll talk about some of the fields I'm familiar with, maybe show some maps, some of the items, and maybe what you could find at some of these fields. Our first show field on the list is going to be Mahogany Ridge. Now, if you're coming into Brimfield from the east, this will be the first show field you see on your right-hand side. Now, I don't have a map of Mahogany Ridge, but one of the big draws here is the Mahogany Ridge fashion tent. So it's going to be this massive tent you'll see right as you're coming up to the show field. I believe there's about 15 vendors in that area, and they all sell men's and women's vintage clothing, jewelry, accessories, and vinyl. The tent itself, if you go on Facebook, you can check out their page. Our next show field is going to be Sturtevant's. Sturtevant's has two fields, Sturtevant's North and Sturtevant's South, each on the opposite sides of Route 20. Sturtevant's has been hosting dealers at Brimfield since 1976. There are roughly 200 vendors across both show fields, and you're likely to find some antique pieces here as well as a lot of collectibles, vintage from 1950s and 1970s. I don't have a map of Sturtevant's, but it'll be a tented area directly next to Mahogany Ridge, and then right across the street from it, there'll be some more tented areas there. You guys can kind of walk through and see what you can find. The next pair of fields we're going to talk about are Shelton's and Crystal Brook. They reside on the north side of Route 20, and up on the screen here are going to be maps of each of these two show fields. So you can kind of get an idea how many dealers each of these will have. Typically, most of the spaces are filled, if not all of them. Now, the types of goods you'll probably see, it's going to be, again, a variety of antiques and collectibles, but I know there's a lot of larger outdoor decorative items, sculptures, some made of metal, stone. Now, one cool thing to note is that the owners of the Shelton field actually do a thing here. I'll show it up on the screen, where they collect all the trash from after the show, and they make these really cool, look to be wall hangings of a lot of the little knickknacks that they pick up. So definitely check that out on their website. Thought this was a pretty cool story to share. The next show field we're going to talk about is Brimfield Auction Acres. Now, this resides on the south end of the highway, and it actually has two shows that take place in this spot. So at the start of the week on Tuesday, there is a one-day show called Treasure Trunk Tuesday. They open between 7 and 8 a.m. And then there's Brimfield Auction Acres, which runs on the weekend, as I mentioned earlier in the video, and has a $5 admission. Now, I'm going to throw a map of the show field up on the screen here. You can see this is a pretty big show field. On Treasure Trunk Tuesday, a lot of these spaces are filled. I don't think it's completely filled typically, just because it's a one-day show. But the benefit of that is you get a lot of different types of goods that come through here, right? So typically you'll see a lot of furniture, you'll see a lot of pottery, you'll see a lot of collectibles, some smalls and jewelry show up a decent amount under some of the tented areas. And then when the weekend comes, you'll have Brimfield Auction Acres, which a lot of people consider one of the best shows of Brimfield. I think it's the oldest show at Brimfield. And again, you're going to have a lot of high quality antiques here. Again, collectibles, furniture, things on the higher end. Next up, we have arguably Brimfield's most famous show, and that's Mays Antique Market. You'll see Mays here is going to be set up on the north side of Route 20. The thing that makes Mays really unique is that when the opening bell does ring, the dealers aren't even set up at that point. They begin to set up then. So their slogan is that everybody's an early buyer, which makes this a really unique field and also gives everybody an equal chance of finding something great. Not to mention, if we look at the map here, you can see there's over 600 dealer spaces that typically get filled in on each of these shows. This is a pretty packed show. Usually draws a huge crowd. Given the large number of dealers at Mays, you're going to get a large variety of antiques available. You're going to see lots of vintage clothing, jewelry. You'll see furniture, paintings. So if you're in search of almost anything, Mays probably has something that you're looking for. And don't forget, at Mays, you're always an early buyer. Our next show field on the list is going to be Quaker Acres. Now, Quaker Acres is situated on the north side of Route 20, right next to Mays here on the map. Now I'll show you guys a Showfield map. You can see this one is kind of hard to get around in just because there's no rhyme or reason, kind of looks like, right? So I typically recommend people just stay to your right, try to get through it like you're getting through a maze. But one of the really cool features of this show is that it's kind of buried in the forest a little bit, right? So you're going to be under these big trees as you walk deeper into the back sections. It's a really nice walkthrough. And as for what types of items they're going to have, again, still similar to many of the other shows, there's going to be a variety of pieces that you're going to come across. I did see a lot of vintage clothing. There's some old toy tents, also some antique toys people were selling. So you'll have a shot at some really nice finds in this field, and it's really just a great stroll through a nice wooded area as well. On to our next show field, which is New England Motel. Now, New England Motel is situated on the north side of Route 20 as well. And I'll throw up the Showfield map here. New England Motel is known for having over 400 plus dealers. And looking at the map, you'll notice there's these three large pavilions in the middle. Now, in these pavilions, you're typically going to see a lot more smalls, like jewelry, small porcelain statues, bronzes. There's some areas where there's some antique furniture here as well. You're going to see in the back there are some tents. In some of these larger tents, you'll actually have some larger furniture items. Just really miscellaneous large items that are typically antique in nature. Our next field is going to be Hertans. I hope you guys can hear me. Sorry about that, but this show field gets pretty packed on opening day. Hertans is situated on the south side of Route 20. I'll put the show field map up on the screen for you. And as you can see, this is a pretty massive field. It's got a lot of shaded areas. There's a lot of trees. It's a really nice walk through this whole field. And you can see these massive lines on opening day right before the gates open. It's going to be flooding in with people. And there's a lot of reasons why people come flooding into this field. The number of dealers, the quality of the antiques. But one of the other reasons is Hertans does a fantastic job of making sure that dealers don't trade before the show opens, right? So all the people that are waiting in line all this time, they have the freshest deals waiting for them when they get in. And no one's kind of poaching those finds before they can get there. All right. There's a little peek of us storming the gates at heart of the Mart, one of the more popular fields here at Brimfield. It is a pay field, and as you can see from the map, it's a pretty large field as well. It's got this really neat pond with a farm area in the back, so there's some pretty neat views once you get to the back of this field. You'll see there's a couple tents. One of the tents is known for having a bunch of textiles. You see on the map here off to the top right. As for what type of antiques you'll find here, I do tend to see a lot of actual, true antiques here. Lots of bronzes, lots of very old furniture. We usually find some pretty odd or unusual pieces when we come to this field. All right, let's check out Dealer's Choice. Dealer's Choice is the furthest west show field that we're going to be talking about today. You can see it here on the map. And I'll pop up a Showfield map as well so you can see all the dealer spaces. You can see this is a really big show field again, over 400 dealers. And you're going to have this nice big pavilion here in the back. Now, if you're into jewelry or, again, smalls, they're pretty much loaded up in this pavilion. This thing gets so packed with people, you want to get here early if you're trying to find a good find. Now, some of the other things you may find in the show field would be, we saw a lot of folk art pieces. My mom found some really great buys that she fell in love with. You're going to see a lot of clothing too. I captured this moment of people just going through this clothing pile like madness. It was, I think I tagged this as clothing madness. So I'm not an expert in that field, but this seems to be a place where you can get some great finds. Alrighty, well, Abby and Dudley get a quick drink here. We can move on to lodging and dining. So for dining at Brimfield, there's a huge food court with a lot of different things to eat. I mean, they have barbecue, they got pizza, they got burgers, breakfast, sandwiches, you name it, they got it. So you won't have to worry too much about this. There's going to be locations all across the road where you can get some food. One place I have to mention is the Pilgrim Sandwich. Me and my dad love this spot. Definitely try it out. It's great. We hit this up every time we go to Brimfield. Now, as for lodging, you're going to have a couple options here. I think Brimfield's website has some good listings here of different hotels that are pretty close to the venues that you guys can check out. In my personal experience, I found the most success staying in either Auburn or Sturbridge, but I do recommend you look early. These places do book quickly, and the longer you wait, sometimes the prices will really blow up. So definitely try to get in a bit early. You can save yourself some money. I have the hotels from the Brimfield website up on the screen here, so hopefully that's helpful. All right, it's time to talk about all the goodies we found. Now, it wouldn't be any type of antiquing trip if Mom didn't find some elf on a shelf, which she found a whole platter full here. Another big favorite of my mom's is Disneyana, and she found a great set here. Looked to be in great condition. The set will likely be for resale. And here's a shot of my dad wheeling and dealing, most likely negotiating some prices for some nice ceramic or porcelain Boston Terrier pieces my mom has tracked down. And for me, I made a major score on the side of the road. These are two metal replicas of the Temple of Vespasian and Temple of Castor and Pollux in Rome. These are ruins. These are really cool pieces. I was super excited to get these. And here's a view of all the great pieces my mom came out with. She's got a lot of neat Boston Terrier memorabilia here, but I think the real star of the show is going to be that centerpiece, that clock. It's a French clock, Art Deco style. It's got the Boston Terrier French Bulldog up top of the ball. This thing is a super rare piece. We were extremely excited to find this. As for me and my dad, we had a major score as well. We collected out of architectural models, Grand Tour models, and we found a plethora of alabaster and marble pieces. These are super rare. They're from the 19th century, and they're all in excellent condition. So we really can't complain. You barely ever even see these online for sale. We got some really good deals, and hope you guys enjoyed seeing our haul from the trip. We really hope this guide was useful, and we hope to see you guys out at Brimfield. Please comment. Let us know any feedback you have on this video, and we really appreciate you guys' time. This is John from Antique Trail Tales, and we'll catch you in the next one.